Thank you so much, Julie, for joining us here at the Dwelling Show. We know you're super busy, so we really, really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I just cannot wait to learn so much about you, Julia. I mean, Julia Broad is an Amazon overall #1 best-selling author, an International Book Award winner, and a recipient of the Beverly Hills Book Award for the best sales book. Oh my God. As an entrepreneur, she also invests in real estate. She's been awarded top 20 under 40. Our latest venture is called Book Launches, which basically helps entrepreneurs and professionals build a brand and boost their business in writing and publishing, and basically selling a top quality book. Just this year, she's also become a mom, and I've moved from Vancouver in Canada here to to the States in LA. I can totally relate to that last bit. I'm a new dad as well. So, Julie, I'm sure you can do a way better job than I can. So can you just tell our Dwell listeners a little bit about yourself and kind of what you've been up to lately?
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, it's a whole new journey. Is it your first child?
First ever. First
Yeah.
ever.
Us too. And yeah, that alone throws a whole new angle into everything you do. And then of course we moved countries and I launched book launchers all in this year. So it's really been a very transitional year, very busy, crazy year. But my background is actually in real estate, really heavily. I started investing in real estate in 2001. And just as, I was in a job and I kept thinking it's going to be a really long life of working for somebody else. And I just started to kind of think, what else can I do? And I actually went back to university and got an MBA in real estate and finance too. And so I spent a lot of years working and investing in real estate until 2008. I kind of hit this point where I just couldn't work for somebody else anymore. And, really bad timing. If you know what happened in 2008 in the real estate market in North America. But, it was just one of those things where it wasn't a good time and our portfolio was not at a point where it could replace my salary. I was a vice president of a company, so I had a sizable salary at the time. But I just had to leave. And so I did. And we did and it was also the same year we got married. So we did what every newlywed couple dreams of doing. We moved back in with my parents. Just to make it work because we weren't making enough from our real estate portfolio to, pay our bills. So, but real estate's made so many things possible and it's led to where I am today because I ended up writing my first book based on our stories and all the things we did wrong, really, in our early years as real estate investing. A lot of people were writing books about how to get rich in real estate. And I wrote a book on all the things that can go wrong, like our crack house and our property manager who got charged with manslaughter and our tenant who pulled a knife on another tenant and all these things. And most of the mistakes were preventable. So that's why I got really excited about telling other people about the things we did wrong because I kept saying, look at all these mistakes and you don't have to make them because we could have avoided them with some good decision making. So that's led to my first book, which did really well in Canada. And by really well, I mean, it went to #1 overall on Amazon as a print book. So it was selling for $24 or $26. And sold thousands and thousands of copies to hang out with Dan Brown in the Game of Thrones series, and still to this day, 4 years later, is still selling, very well in Canada. So it was just one of those cool kind of success stories that everybody started asking me questions about writing books. So instead of being the real estate expert, it kind of led to being, the self-publishing book expert, and just kind of bit by bit, I slowly realized that I really want to help people write their book and put their stories out there and do it in a way that creates an awesome book that they're proud of, that can grow their business, because the opportunities that opened up once I had a book out there were unbelievable. Suddenly I was on TV. I was the same investor one day, and then all of a sudden all the news stations in Canada were like, hey, we want a real estate expert and you're a real estate expert, and will you come on our show and talk about real estate? And that didn't happen before the book, but with the book it did happen. So yeah, it's kind of a long story that led to where I am today, but lots of cool nuggets to learn along the way.
Wow. First and foremost, congratulations on being #1 on Amazon. That is fascinating. That is awesome. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to go back real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually went back to school and you had your MBA in real estate. So what would you say to somebody, one, considering having like a real estate, license, like being an agent, or going back to university and actually doing a master's or an MBA? What path is better, or what do you think about those choices?
Yeah, so it depends on your goals. To be completely blunt, if your goal is to be an investor, don't do either of those things. Because they're not really going to get you where you want to go. A lot of real estate investors become realtors and or even become mortgage brokers, which is a path my husband took. So we started investing as boyfriend and girlfriend, which thankfully worked out. Could have been a disaster, but we ended up getting married. So, but he, at one point, he decided he didn't want to be in the market research industry, which is what he was in, but he wanted to do more real estate. So he became a mortgage broker. But really, he just wanted to work on his own deals. So he really should have just took the leap and focused and, really kind of suffered a little bit in terms of financial situation for a year or two and spent the time and effort building his real estate business, which is what we ultimately did. But to me, it wasn't a waste because he learned the financial industry in a powerful way. But he could, that time and effort and money that went into that really could have made him a stronger investor so much faster. And that's what I see with so many other people. So the MBA, as a side note, if you want to work for a huge development company or do consulting or something like that, the MBA is perfect education for that. For doing your own deals, there's nothing that replaces just getting out there and doing it and talking to people and raising your own money and really talking to the banks and learning. Nothing, no education, no course, nothing else will replace just getting off your ass and getting out there and doing
just doing it. Wow, powerful. This is just amazing. That was a bit of a selfish question. That was my question. So don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. So I got my answer.
It's our secret.
So, you did pretty well, with the real estate side of things, right? And then you wrote a book about what could potentially go wrong. You could have gone on Bigger Pockets and wrote a blog, or perhaps, I don't know, just had a meetup group and told your story. The book sounds like a big, huge thing. Why a book?
Well, actually, it's funny because I actually did blog on Bigger Pockets and I did write my own newsletter and I did do a lot of those things to share these articles. I wrote for magazines and things like that. But ultimately, like, that stuff's all great, but less than 1% of the population has written a book. And you think about it, 35% of the US population has a degree, post-secondary education. What really differentiates you, writing a blog or writing a book? If you want to raise money to do deals, which I suspect a lot of your investors, a lot of the people who are listening to your podcast probably want to raise money. If you're just going to buy into a deal, you don't need to write a book. But if you want the credibility that's going to have somebody saying, hey, listen, I have $100,000 and I'd like to invest it with you, a book is something that takes you from, a great investor to one that everybody knows about and talks about. It's the difference between being on television and not. And so it depends on your goals. You don't need a book. You don't need a book to be a real estate investor. You can be a fantastic real estate investor and never write a word. But if you have aspirations of doing bigger things and having the money come to you without you having to chase it down, things like a book really put you at a level that you just can't compare. And the other cool thing is you can meet and talk to people that you can't get access to right now. I became a speaker, and suddenly, instead of looking up to the people on stage and trying to figure out how can I meet them, I'm now having them come up to me and going, hey, Julie, I've been wanting to talk to you, right? It changes the playing field for you. So yeah, there's a lot of great reasons to write a book versus a blog post.
Thank you so much for that, because that's kind of like the, I guess, natural evolution, right? When you're trying to be a thought leader in whatever space you're playing at, you think, oh, I'll just go on the forums on Bigger Pockets or write a blog. And I think those are well and good, but from what you're saying is, if you really want to get to that next level and really have a firm position as a thought leader, that's just a really good strategy to have.
It is, but not any book will do. And by the way, writing blog posts is a great way to flush out your thinking, and you can use those as long as you're not signing any contracts that somebody owns the content, which sometimes I think, depending on what level of writing you're doing at Bigger Pockets, for example, I think they actually get control of the content to a degree. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to that. But if you're writing content that you can then repurpose and use for your own stuff, a lot of my book actually came from the magazine articles and other things that I'd written. And so, I was repurposing a lot of content. It wasn't as hard to write as if I was starting from scratch. But you have to write a quality book that's going to stand out. There's too many books on real estate out there that are exactly the same, and that's not going to do the trick.
Fascinating. So I'm a dual listener. I'm in the gym, or I'm driving to work right now, listening to them. Like, wow, I want to write a book, right? I feel like I have a fascinating story, but I suck at writing, or I don't have time, or I don't know. I don't know if I can do that kind of stuff. What would you say to that person?
Again, I don't think everybody should write a book, because I think you need to commit to writing a great book. But to the person who thinks they can't write or don't want to write, doesn't like writing, there's lots of ways to tackle this. And we work with, at my company, Book Launchers, we work with quite a few clients who aren't writing their book. Now, we're not ghostwriting it. What we're doing is, because everybody starts with a writing coach, because I don't think any of our clients consider themselves writers. They're people with a message that want to boost their business or do something bigger, and they're using a book as a tool to do that. So they're not necessarily writers. So we have everybody work with a writing coach. And when you're working with that writing coach, they're doing two things. The writing coach is making sure your book isn't going to be boring and it's not going to suck. Because if you're going to be somebody, I say, this is a Book Launchers client, your book cannot be boring. It has to be great. So that's kind of my own selfish criteria. The second thing is you work and probably spend a month to 2 months developing a really fantastic outline. What this outline does for you is you can now record yourself speaking and create the content verbally. If you don't have that great outline, you'll have a lot of trouble doing this piece of it. You can sit down and write a book without an outline. It takes a lot more time. But if you're going to speak the book, you need that great outline so you've got structure to it. And then you transcribe it. And then we've got all the editors who will take it through and turn it from a spoken word to a written word and help you with that. So there's different ways to tackle it. If you are committed to it and you really want to do it, there's a way that we can help you get to that finished product. Now, if you have no time, you have to look at genuinely, do you have no time? And I get it with a 4-month-old baby. Oh my goodness, I totally get it. But at the same time, I moved from Canada to the United States, launched a new business, and I did all of that with a 3 to 6-month-old baby. So if it's important enough, you do it.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. You find the time, you find the energy. Was I sleep deprived? Was I a bit miserable? Yes. So I don't necessarily recommend doing that. But at the end of the day, you just have to look inside and figure out, is it important enough that I can carve 5 hours out a week to do this? And if the answer is yes, you can find 5 hours in whatever way, wherever that looks like, then you can write a book.
Huh. So historically, or should I say traditionally, folks, when they think of writing a book, they think of, I have to look for a big publisher, right? But now we have this ubiquitous tool called the internet, right? And Amazon has clearly, changed this old traditional publisher. How does that play into, self-publishing and able to get your book out there quicker and you're not needing to go to a traditional publisher?
Yeah, again, it depends on your goals. So, and that's the cool part, is there's no one right or wrong answer. It's not wrong to go with a traditional publisher or wrong to self-publish. It depends. And, I have colleagues who've written books who've actually bought it back from the publishers because the publishing agreement was limiting. So if you're looking at traditional publishing, first, you need an agent that will advocate for your position so that you don't get stuck into a deal where things are happening that you're not happy with. A lot of authors get shoved into content or topics or angles that they don't really like when they go with the traditional publisher. And big issue, you don't own that content. The traditional publisher does. So what happened to one of my colleagues and friends, he wrote a real estate book and then actually ended up leaving the real estate industry. Publisher wasn't happy that he was no longer real estate related, took his exact book, word for word, put a new author on the cover.
Wow.
They just changed the introduction. That's it. It was word for word his book, but took him and his co-authors off, put new people on it. And they were fully within their rights. Like, I think it's disgusting, but the publisher was fully within their rights to do this. And so some of these things, people think traditional publishing is all that. But if it's your content, your message, you want to make sure you're getting the right deal. And self-publishing, by the way, if a traditional publisher, you still have to do the marketing. And that's the hardest part. So, you know, to me, if I'm going to do all that work, I want to have complete control and make the most possible money. And at the end of the day, you know, if I still have to do the marketing, then why not just self-publish and make $6 a book instead of 80 cents a book, which is kind of, depending on price points and all those kind of things, that's roughly what you're looking at for a typical nonfiction book in terms of what you're making. So it really depends on your goals, because there's certain things like a New York Times bestseller status that you're not going to get as a self-publisher right now. They just don't really recognize self-published books. But you know, again, it depends on what you're doing the book for. What's your ultimate goal? And, you know, backwards figure out what you need to do to get to that goal at the end of the day. And if you do want to be a New York Times bestseller, why? Like, what is that giving you in your business and in your life that you can't get from some other goal?
So I'm sold, right? I want to self-publish. What would you say, or what is the biggest mistake I could make on my path to self-publishing?
There's a lot, and I can speak to, you know, I made a $1,200 mistake on my first book. And the worst part is it was the difference between checking and not checking one single box inside of the print on demand company that I worked with. So there's mistakes like that, but that's actually not the biggest mistake you can possibly make. And that box, by the way, because some people will be like, what's that box? The box was whether it's returnable or not. And you need to make it returnable to have it in bookstores. But I didn't want, there's a choice of return and destroy or return and send back to author. To me, I was like, you can't destroy my books. My goodness, that's horrible. Right? So I can't return and send back to author, and they charge you a bundle. It's like $6 per shipping, plus they charge you for the book back. So I think I was paying almost the same as if I'd bought every single book on Amazon when they sent it back to me.
Oh, wow.
So return and destroy. Anyway.
That's good to know.
The biggest mistake is not that, but that is why you want to have help from people who know what they're doing when you set all these things up, because the wrong mistake can cost you a lot of money. I think the biggest mistake is that a lot of authors, well, first of all, they write a boring book. So, and I've seen this so many times in the real estate industry, because so many people sent me their real estate books for endorsements and testimonials after mine did so well. And I'd read it and I'd think, I swear I've read this book before, but I hadn't. It's just because everybody was writing about the same thing. They're like, okay, here's the ratios you need, and here's how you pick a great area, and here's what, all the jargon is. And it's boring. So boring. So you want to plan a book that stands out. So you want to think about your goal and really think about what's important for you to achieve, and spend the time and money and invest in creating a fantastic book. So don't skimp on editors. Don't get your aunt that used to be a school teacher to edit the book. Get a professional editor to edit the book and create a great cover that stands out, because so many real estate books look the same too. They all have that fancy luxury house on the front, right? You're laughing because you've seen this.
Of course, I know them.
So get a great cover design. So invest in it. But this is your book. This is your credibility. You want to be proud. Like, if you run into whoever you think is the greatest, real estate person out there, the kind of the be all end all. If you run into that person at a conference and you say, I wrote a book, and they say, great, give me a copy. Are you going to be embarrassed? Or are you going to be like, look at my awesome book? And if you hold yourself to that standard and create a great book, then, I don't think you'll make a big mistake. And so, biggest mistake is not planning for it and investing in this book and making it the best possible book that you could create.
So before I get to book launches, I'm really, really interested, I'm also thinking, I'm 32 years old, and some of our dual listeners could be, closer to my age, and they might be thinking, I don't know, do I have enough to tell people, or do I have to wait to have a biographical book? Like, do you think, authors are too young or too old to have a book? I'm just curious.
Ooh, good question. You're not too old or too young. The thing is, if you think you haven't done enough yet, it comes back to who are you trying to target and what's your ultimate goal. So, that's a big thing. The other thing is, I always think about the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He interviewed the best of the best, right? The people who were the wealthiest in that nation, and shared their lessons. So could you do that? And by the way, you know, the number of people who would happily participate in something like that is really high. It's a lot higher than you think it would, than if you have a good approach. And then now all of a sudden you've got a relationship, right? Now you've connected with these people, and you become the expert by interviewing and researching the experts. Rich Dad Poor Dad is fiction. It teaches important lessons, but it's a fictional story. So, you know, you could write that. If you have a powerful message and lessons that you want to share, you can find an approach to do it. Chicken Soup for the Soul, that whole series was stories collected, right? So if you want to collect great stories and put them together in a unique way, there's a way. Like if you want to write a book, there is a way for you to write a fantastic book and stand out from the others. You know, it just depends on your goals, depends on what experience and expertise in your own story right now. But again, that's stuff we help people with. So that's kind of the exciting part for me.
So now that's a good segue, right? I'm sold. I have to write a book, right? So walk me through kind of the journey and the path that book launches would take me.
Yeah, you bet. So I started this company because I really wanted, everybody kept saying, okay, you know, how do I do this? What do I do for this? And I kept saying, okay, well, here's how you hire all these people. And you need quite a few people on your team it's kind of like real estate, right? You know, you need a plumber and a lawyer and a mortgage broker and you know, like the list of people you need is long. And it's the same with book publishing. And so I was explaining to people, okay, well, here's the questions you ask to hire this person. And here's, you know, the criteria to do this. And then I just kept thinking, I wish I could just say, here's my team, just use them. And so when I started thinking about what business I wanted to start when I moved to the States, I thought, I just want to create the dream team and hand them to people and go, here, just work with us and we'll take care of it. You come to the table with the expertise, we'll help you get it out on paper, and then we'll do all the hard, like boring stuff really in the middle that you don't want to spend 100 hours researching. So the process is kind of 5 phases all the way through. You know, we start with the writing phase where we put you in touch with a writing coach, and the writing coach will read your chapters, so you never have to sit there going, does this suck? I'm stuck. What do I write? You know, should I have these stories in here or not? Do I need a story? Those are all things the writing coach works with you on, and his mandate is simple: make this book awesome, no boring books. Right? That is his mantra. And our main writing coach, he was a stand-up comedian, opened for Ellen DeGeneres, Larry the Cable Guy. He turned a computer book into a 7-year running national TV show. So he knows how to take for lack of a better word, dull concepts and turn them into interesting, engaging content. So, so you start there, and then you go through, we take it through the processing phase, which is all the editors. And we have a content editor who reads through the content to make sure it makes sense. And it's, you know, the facts are verified, all that kind of stuff. Then we go through the copy editing, proofreading. Then it goes to the publishing phase, where we help you set up the accounts. We have somebody who does the cover design for you, so you're not getting a template. So there'll be none of that luxury house garbage, right? This is going to be a personalized, fantastic cover that'll stand out like in a thumbnail as well as in a cover. And then we take you through the interior layout design. We've got a layout designer, which is what is the difference between a lot of self-published books and a book that sits on a bookshelf or is a New York Times bestseller, is they've invested in that interior design. A lot of people will just convert a PDF, and you can do that, but it doesn't look good. It looks okay, but it doesn't look great. And then we actually help you with the promotion and launch of your book. So as long as you're a member, we're working on your book all the way through to the end. There's certain things you have to do, you know, like go on TV, speak on stage if you want to do those things, but that's up to you. But those are things that you do. We obviously don't speak on your behalf, but we do as much as we possibly can to help you make this book a massive success all the way through.
Wow, fascinating stuff. That's really, really cool. That is super, super cool. So I think we're definitely dwelling into the quick round now. So these are going to be just like straight quick questions, quick answers. So the very first question is, what's the differentiating factor in Julie Broad that it's not something you can see in another person or another guy or another girl? What's that differentiating factor?
Ooh. Well, you see it in other people too, but I take action. You know, I don't dwell when something's not going well. Like I said, I quit my job. I wasn't happy. It was terrible timing. I quit my job and did it anyways. You know, when we decided we needed to move to the States, you know, we did it. You know, I don't just say, I'm thinking of doing this. I just go do it.
Awesome. Second question. What's the last book that you read? And what was the one thing or the one nugget that you learned from that book?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I'm not done reading it, but I'm in the middle of it. And it's Chris Anderson's, it's a book on, he has TED Talks. And so it's a book on public speaking, like a TED Talk, or lessons from public speaking as TED Talk. And the lesson that I'm taking away from it right now is really, how do I explain it? He says that every talk has a through line, which corresponds to books, right? So it's that one message. And so when he gave the example of too many choices causes unhappiness, right? You think that having a lot of choices, would make you happy. So that's a through line. Like that's kind of the hook. And so he was going through the talks and explaining how you need to have this one single line that explains and markets your entire talk. And so there's lots of really cool takeaways from this book. But yeah, it's a great book. I highly recommend it to anybody.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I don't think I've heard of that. Last question. So you've got book launches going, you've got the baby, obviously you got your partner, got a ton of stuff going on. What do you do for fun?
I sleep every chance I get, which I know you totally relate to right now. And that's really, honestly, like fun. If I can get a nap or I get 6 hours of sleep straight, I'm like, yes, so fantastic. And that is fun. Now, someday, I hope to get back to poker and CrossFit, which were my two loves, for lack of a better word at the moment, prior to this new bundle of joy coming into my life. But yeah, right now, honestly, sleep is the most fun.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. So, if I'm a dual listener, I'm like, wow, this has definitely opened, a whole world of opportunities for me. Maybe I like what Julie's saying. Maybe I can get with her. How can people reach out to you? How can people find more about book launches and you?
Yeah, booklaunchers.com is the absolute best place. We have a great book. So for people, it's an ebook. So if you want tips on selling a book, it's a free download. You can get it at booklaunchers.com/sell books. So you can go there, and it has the 8 ways that you can sell 1,000 books for under $100. And these are actually the tips, the things that I use that sold the majority of my books in that first launch that I was mentioning, where we went to #1. So I didn't spend money on marketing. It still got that high. Of a launch. So those are pretty valuable tips. So you can check those out there. And of course, I'm on social media. So just look me up, Julie Broad, all over the place, and you'll find me.
Julie, thank you so much. I've learned so much stuff. I'm definitely demystified publishing.
Great.
So I feel like I know so much more. I feel like I can just go write a book now. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.